So the book is split up actually into three different sections. The first one is your vision. And I think it's that right there, that was a thing for me that I actually didn't really identify until about 2007. So it was only about 11 years ago. So at first I knew like, I want to do good. I want to do more. You know, I set goals. I learned how to set goals, break them down. But I set goals that I felt were kind of possible for me. I never thought about like bigger. I grew up lower income. And so there was definitely this part of me that's like, well, I can do this, but like that stuff, that's for people like them. And that was still there. And even saying like out loud, like I didn't say out loud, like I want to be a millionaire, you know, until I was in my late 20s or early 30s. Like I always felt really bad for saying that because of where I grew up from. And so, you know, the first thing I remember going to an event in 2007 where we were challenged. There's an author, speaker. He's very involved in the Catholic community, Matthew Kelly. And he spoke and he talked about one of his books called The Dream Manager, which is very simple. But as I went through it, I was like, man, this makes so much sense. And I started writing, and I'd never like sat down and wrote about all the different things that would be cool to do because I felt bad. I felt like growing up with what I had, if I wanted more, I didn't appreciate what I had. Does that make sense? So there was this like, you shouldn't want more things, you know, you should be happy with what you have. And that kept like resounding in the back. And so when I went to this event, all of a sudden it was this like, no, like, you know, God, the universe, whatever you believe in has created this beautiful world that has so much in it that you could go experience, see. And I want to do that, you know, and I want to be able to share that with other people. And I want to help other people have these experiences. So I remember sitting down, and it was for the first time I thought about, okay, what do I want? So here's the thing. A lot of people identify what they want, but then they're like, man, that would be cool. But there's nothing in their mind says they could do it, or they don't have a plan as to how it's going to get done. So maybe they have these really great things lined up, but there's nothing that's really pulling them. And I think that before you have a plan, you have to really identify why. Why do you want it? You know, like I want this, but like why? Because if it doesn't really excite you that much, when it gets tough, which by the way, anything that you're working towards that you're really excited about will have its moments where it gets tough. And if you don't have that reason why you want that so bad, how it's serving you, and the deeper rooted that why is for you, the more meaningful it is for you, the more it'll really help you take action, right? It'll create a fire that allows you to like be like, all right, I got to get this done, you know? So really understanding, you know, what's possible, what do you want, why you want it, and taking time to really identify that. And once you've identified that, then it's really looking at, and I walk through in the second part of the book, it's called your master plan. And I talk about, first off, what are your non-negotiables, right? Because there's a lot of things in my dreams list right now and in my dreams book that I'm like, oh my God, I would love to do all these things. And I have things with time frames, and I have things but I have the would be nice. And then I have this is a non-negotiable. This is happening. And so I think it's important to also identify that and prioritize that because sometimes people get bogged down with like things that might not be the most important to them. And then later on, they're like, man, I spent all this time working on this where that wasn't really in alignment. And that wasn't what was most important to me, you know? So that's why knowing why you want certain goals are important, because then you can identify, so which are my non-negotiables? And once you have those, then you can actually sit down and go, okay, so what time frame, you know, and giving it time frames and breaking it down and saying, okay, I want to do this in the next 3 years. I want to buy this home, or I want to start this business in the next year. What's it going to take? And so knowing specifics of like how much money you're going to need to put down to start this, to buy the space or lease it, to be able to start that business, or, you know, go take your family on that vacation. And what I found is that sometimes these goals seem really big, right? I had a friend someone that they knew that I coached him to start his business. He was a personal trainer. He said, I really want to start. I want to have a facility. I want to do stuff. He's like, that'd be really cool. I want to do that one day. And I said, one day? Well, why not day? And he's like, well, I mean, I need money. And I said, well, why don't you start today? You know, you might not open it, but like, what actions can you take today to start getting you there? And he was like, oh, well, I don't know. I said, well, let's sit down and look at it. And so we sat down and made a plan and identified what exactly he needed. And he needed like over $10,000 to do what he wanted to do. I said, okay, cool, let's break it down. And I said, depending if you want to do it in 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and we broke that down of how much money he would need. And when it was all said and done, it was like, dude, go to one less happy hour per week and save up the money and you'll have it in 3 years. Like cut out this and this and you'll have it in 2 years. Like live like this and look what happens and you can have this in 1 year. And he got it done so much quicker than he expected. And it was just putting it on paper where it was like, wow, this is a reality. Another lady was like, I want to go on this vacation, my dream vacation to Europe, but it's going to cost like $7,000 to take my family. And by the way, that number seems so big. But when we broke it down with the timeline, it was like put aside $50 a week from your paycheck, $50 a week. And when you get these bonuses, put away a bigger chunk and then boom. So the second part of the book really talks about that because a lot of people have these great dreams and they do mean a lot to them. But then they're like, oh, I don't know how I'll ever get it done. So whether you work with somebody, you hire a coach, a company, that's something that I personally really enjoy doing, sitting down and say, okay, let's create time frames. Let's decide on your action steps. Let's schedule it. When is this actually going to happen? Because another thing I found, and I found this from coaching early on with the students, was they had this like schedule. We made a plan, but you have to actually commit to doing it, So I think there's value in seeing two sides. One, why is it so exciting? Why do I want this? And like really seeing how great it's going to be to make you want to do it. But also looking at the flip side and saying, if I don't do this, if I don't take action, where will things be 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now? Am I okay with that? And if the answer is no, then it's like, then freaking got to work, like start taking action on the plans that you made, but keeping that at the forefront. So that's really big. And then the third part of the book goes into like really ensuring your success and talks about really creating the right conditions because we do need the right environment. If you were like, oh, I really want to grow, a certain type of flower, but you're like in the desert and it doesn't grow there, that's not going to happen. And so in our lives, we really have to create an environment that fosters the growth of what we want to happen. So many times people are trying to grow something or grow themselves in an environment that does not support that. And so it's really important to identify that. So that you can put yourself in the right environment, create the right habits, morning rituals, having the right people surround you, and then I'm really big on having processes for when shit hits the fan. So whenever either you have certain negative thoughts or things happen, we all have the voices in our head and those like inner dialogues, inner recordings from early on that have been programmed within us. And that when we have those self-doubt, those things pop up that we go, and we have a process. So one of my processes when I get upset is to stop and I take a very deep breath and I go, why am I upset right now? Like that's a process when I get upset because I used to be very reactive and high rate and be like, what the blah, 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 blah. And that was a process I created about a decade ago that really helped me be way more calm. So it was like, why am I upset right now? Like what's really upsetting me right now? Because sometimes what you're upset about is something that got triggered from your past. It has nothing to do with that person. And sometimes that person really did piss you off. Well, one, I feel it's very simple to read. And that's something that a lot of feedback, they've been like, it's so like, I 10 different people were like, I just couldn't put it down. Like it was like, we're having a conversation. And so it's very conversational. There's a lot of stories in there that I think are very relatable and to all ages. When I wrote it at first, I wrote it with the intention of young professionals, young people in transition, right? And whether it was like high school to college into career, transitioning from careers. And that was more of my mentality as I was writing the book. And what I found through people who have already read it and pre-read it, that they've said, oh my gosh, like I took this and this helped me with that. And I would say that there are a lot of great reminders through stories and simple things that go a long way. And I believe that in my book, what makes it special is the simplicity of complex ideas and just like easy ways. And they're simple, but it's still hard to be disciplined and do it, right? So the work isn't hard. It's hard to have the discipline to do it, but it's very simple. where it really can, like in 1 year, and I've seen it happen over and over and over, and a lot of client stories are in there as well, just seeing people absolutely transform their lives. And so whether it's for you or it's for you to have a framework where you can help others, if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, if you have a family, in any kind of leadership position, or even with your business. And I think about the power of if you're a business owner and you can use this very simple framework that anybody who's never heard self-development can use, and you're going over this and teaching them. There's actually a design exercises throughout the book. So in each chapter, there's parts where it says like pause and reflect, and there's things to think about and jot down. And at the end, there's a design exercise at every chapter. And I've had several business owners already who have said, hey, we have a sales meeting for our realty team every week. I'm going to incorporate this and do like an exercise each week with them. And I said, it's a beautiful thing because a lot of people don't get exposed to that. And I'm so grateful for my first sales company and for them exposing me to personal growth and development, and to really understanding that I was in control of creating what I wanted to happen. I didn't need to just collect whatever came my way and do the best with it, but I could actually decide what I wanted and go out and take the steps to create that. And this book really walks through that, as well as owning the ugly parts.